Consider how many hours you've spent worrying about the opinions of others. Picture all the moments when you've censored your true thoughts, modified your behavior, or denied your authentic desires simply to meet someone else's standards. Most of us move through life carrying an invisible burden, the weight of endless expectations, judgments, and fears that shape our every decision. Michel de Montaigne, the Renaissance philosopher who pioneered the essay form, uncovered a revolutionary insight that challenges everything our culture teaches us about success and happiness. His discovery was both simple and profound. The path to genuine freedom begins the moment we release our desperate grip on external approval and embrace life's inherent uncertainty. We construct elaborate mental prisons without realizing it. Each brick represents another worry. What will they think? Am I good enough? Did I make the right impression? These concerns accumulate until we can barely recognize ourselves beneath the layers of performance and pretense. Montaigne spent years in his tower library, examining human nature with unflinching honesty. He noticed a peculiar pattern. People who desperately sought approval rarely received it, while those who seemed indifferent to judgment naturally attracted respect and admiration. This wasn't mere coincidence. It revealed something fundamental about human psychology. When we constantly seek validation, we broadcast insecurity. Others sense our need, our desperation, our willingness to contort ourselves for acceptance. Conversely, when we operate from a place of genuine self-acceptance, we emit an entirely different energy. We become magnetic precisely because we've stopped trying to be. Think about someone you deeply respect. Chances are they don't spend much time explaining themselves or seeking your approval. They move through the world with quiet confidence, making decisions aligned with their values rather than social pressure. This isn't arrogance, it's freedom. Our modern world sells us a seductive lie. If you just work harder, plan better, and worry more intensely, you can control your destiny. We're told that success requires constant vigilance, that relaxation equals laziness, and that uncertainty should be eliminated at all costs. Montaigne recognized this obsession with control as a source of profound suffering. He observed how people exhausted themselves trying to manage uncontrollable circumstances, like sailors attempting to command the wind. The more tightly they gripped the wheel, the more the storms of life battered them. His radical suggestion? Stop fighting. Not in the sense of giving up, but in the sense of working with reality rather than against it. When you accept that life is fundamentally unpredictable, you stop wasting energy on futile resistance. You begin to respond rather than react, to adapt rather than rigidly insist. Consider your daily anxieties. How many concern things entirely outside your control? Other people's thoughts, future outcomes, past mistakes that cannot be changed. We replay conversations endlessly, imagining different responses. We catastrophize about possibilities that may never materialize. We punish ourselves for errors that everyone else has already forgotten. This mental churning accomplishes nothing productive. It doesn't change the past or secure the future. It only steals peace from the present moment. Montaigne invites us to ask, what if I simply stopped? What if I acknowledge my limitations and focus solely on what I can actually influence? Here's where Montaigne's philosophy becomes truly counterintuitive. When you stop obsessively caring about outcomes, you often achieve better results. When you stop chasing relationships desperately, you become more attractive. When you stop fearing failure, you take the risks that lead to genuine success. This isn't magical thinking, it's practical psychology. Desperation clouds judgment. Anxiety inhibits performance. Fear prevents action. By releasing these emotional anchors, you free yourself to operate at your highest capacity. Athletes describe this state as being in the zone, performing without self-consciousness, without fear of failure, fully immersed in the present moment. Artists experience flow when they stop worrying whether their work is good enough and simply create. Entrepreneurs succeed when they stop obsessing over every possible objection and just build. The common thread? Detachment from outcome. Not indifference to quality or effort, but freedom from the paralyzing fear of judgment and failure. Montaigne himself embodied this principle. He wrote his essays without concern for academic approval or literary convention. He shared his most intimate thoughts, his doubts, his contradictions. This radical honesty, this refusal to perform perfection, made his work timeless. 5 centuries later, we still read Montaigne because he dared to be himself completely. Perfectionism masquerades as a virtue in our culture. We admire people who have it all together, who present flawless images on social media, who never seem to struggle or doubt. But this perfectionism is actually a cage. When you believe you must be perfect, you become terrified of being seen. You hide your struggles, deny your uncertainties, and present a carefully curated version of yourself. This requires enormous energy and creates profound loneliness, because no one can truly know you if you're always performing. Montaigne took the opposite approach. He examined his own flaws with curiosity rather than shame. He admitted his contradictions, his changing opinions, his human weaknesses. Rather than diminishing him, this honesty elevated his wisdom. People trusted him precisely because he didn't claim to have all the answers. What would happen if you extended yourself the same compassion? If you acknowledge that being human means being imperfect, inconsistent, sometimes confused? You might discover that the energy you've spent hiding your flaws could be redirected toward actually living. Your mistakes don't define you. Your willingness to learn from them does. Your uncertainties don't weaken you. Your honesty about them builds genuine connection. Your imperfections don't make you unworthy. They make you real. Acceptance gets misunderstood as resignation. People assume that accepting reality means tolerating bad situations or abandoning ambition. But Montaigne taught something more nuanced. Acceptance is the foundation of effective action. When you resist reality, you waste energy fighting facts. If you lose your law and spend weeks denying it happened, raging about injustice, or spiraling into self-blame, you delay addressing the actual situation. But if you accept what occurred, not as good or bad, just as reality, you can immediately begin problem solving. This applies to everything: difficult emotions, challenging relationships, your own nature, the behavior of others. The moment you stop insisting that things should be different, you gain the clarity to work with what actually is. Does this mean tolerating mistreatment? Absolutely not. It means recognizing mistreatment clearly, without the fog of wishful thinking, so you can respond effectively. Does it mean abandoning goals? No, it means pursuing them without the anxiety that comes from believing you must control every variable. Montaigne observed that wise people share a common quality. They don't argue with reality. They see clearly, accept what they cannot change, and focus their energy where it can make a difference. This discernment, knowing what to release and what to engage, is perhaps the highest form of intelligence. Nothing reveals our need for approval more clearly than our relationships. We contort ourselves trying to be who we think others want. We suppress uncomfortable truths to avoid conflict. We tolerate poor treatment because we fear being alone. We demand that others fulfill our emotional needs and then feel disappointed when they inevitably fall short. Montaigne recognized that healthy relationships require a paradoxical foundation: connection without neediness. When you need another person's approval to feel worthy, you can't have genuine intimacy, only performance and transaction. But when you come to relationships from a place of wholeness, everything changes. Consider the difference between these two approaches. In one, you constantly monitor your partner's mood, anxiously adjusting your behavior based on their reactions. You need reassurance, fear, abandonment, and feel threatened by their independence. In the other, you appreciate your partner while remaining secure in yourself. You enjoy their company without requiring their constant attention. You support their growth even when it doesn't directly benefit you. Which relationship sounds healthier? Which would you rather experience? The second approach requires developing what Montaigne called self-sufficiency, not isolation, but the ability to be content in your own company. When you genuinely enjoy solitude, you stop using relationships to escape yourself. When you've cultivated inner stability, you stop demanding that others provide it. This doesn't mean avoiding commitment or intimacy. It means engaging from strength rather than desperation. The people who love you most freely are those who don't need you to be anything other than yourself. Can you offer others the same gift? Montaigne observed how people mentally live everywhere except the present. We dwell in past regrets or future anxieties, rarely fully inhabiting the current moment. We eat without tasting, talk without listening, experience without experiencing. This temporal displacement creates immense suffering. The past cannot be changed, yet we replay it endlessly. The future hasn't arrived, yet we try to control it through worry. Meanwhile, the only moment where life actually happens right now passes unnoticed. What would it mean to fully inhabit your present experience? Not ignoring past lessons or future planning, but not being trapped in temporal elsewhere either. When you eat, actually tasting the food. When someone speaks, genuinely listening rather than planning your response. When challenges arise, addressing them rather than catastrophizing. This presence isn't a mystical state requiring years of meditation. It's simply the natural result of releasing unnecessary mental burdens. When you stop carrying every regret from your past and every fear about your future, you become available to what's actually happening now. And here's what Montaigne discovered. The present moment, fully experienced, is enough. Not perfect, not always pleasant, but sufficient. Life happens in these moments, not in our endless mental commentary about them. As you internalize these insights, something remarkable occurs. Your priorities naturally realign. The things that once seemed desperately important, impressing certain people, accumulating specific achievements, maintaining particular images, lose their grip. Meanwhile, what truly matters becomes clear. You might discover that you care less about career prestige and more about meaningful work, less about social status and more about genuine friendship, less about being right and more about being honest, less about others' approval and more about self-respect. This isn't a rejection of success or ambition, it's a refinement of them. You still pursue goals, but one's aligned with your authentic values rather than external expectations. You still care about quality, but you define it yourself rather than seeking validation. You still engage with the world, but from freedom rather than need. Montaigne called this learning to die, not morbidly, but as a reminder that life is finite. When you truly grasp that your time is limited, you stop wasting it on things that don't matter. You become ruthlessly honest about what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Ask yourself, if you had only 1 year left, what would you immediately stop worrying about? Those things probably don't deserve your attention now either. One of Montaigne's most liberating ideas was treating life as an experiment rather than a test. Tests have right and wrong answers, success and failure, judgment and consequences. Experiments have hypotheses, data, and learning. No outcome is truly wrong if you gain insight. When you view your life experimentally, mistakes become information. Failures become data points. Uncertainty becomes an opportunity for discovery. You might try a new career, relationship approach, or lifestyle without staking your entire identity on the outcome. This mindset removes the paralyzing fear that stops most people from pursuing what genuinely interests them. You don't need perfect information or guaranteed success to experiment. You just need curiosity and willingness to learn. Montaigne experimented constantly. He questioned received wisdom, challenged his own assumptions, and changed his mind when evidence warranted. This intellectual humility, this willingness to be wrong, paradoxically made him wiser than those who clung rigidly to certainty. What experiments might you run in your own life? What could you try if failure didn't carry such terrifying stakes? The answer to these questions might reveal your truest desires, the ones you've been too afraid to pursue. People often worry that being themselves will lead to rejection. Sometimes it does, and that's actually valuable information. When you're authentic and someone rejects you, they're rejecting who you actually are, not who you're pretending to be. This saves enormous time and energy. Meanwhile, when you're authentic and people embrace you, you can trust that connection. You don't need to maintain an exhausting performance. You can relax into genuine relationship. Montaigne discovered that authenticity attracts the right people while repelling the wrong ones. By being unapologetically himself, he cultivated relationships based on reality rather than pretense. Some critics dismissed him, but the people who resonated with his honesty became devoted readers across centuries. This filtering function is a feature, not a bug. You don't want to be liked by everyone. You want to be genuinely known by some. You don't need universal approval. You need authentic connection with people who appreciate who you actually are. When you stop performing, you give others permission to do the same. Your authenticity creates space for theirs. This is how genuine community forms. Not through everyone pretending to be perfect, but through people being courageously real. As you embrace this philosophy, you'll inevitably face criticism. People invested in your old, accommodating self may resist your newfound boundaries. Those who benefited from your people-pleasing may complain when you prioritize your needs. Society rewards conformity and punishes deviation. Montaigne's approach to criticism was simple. Consider it dispassionately, extract any useful insight, and release the rest. Not everyone's opinion deserves equal weight. Some people criticize from wisdom and care. Listen to them. Others criticize from their own insecurity or agenda. Their feedback reveals more about them than you. The question isn't whether you'll be criticized. You will, regardless of what you do. The question is whether you'll let that criticism control you. Will you sacrifice your authenticity to avoid judgment? Or will you accept that disapproval is simply the price of self-determination? Remember, the people criticizing you for being yourself are often deeply uncomfortable with their own inauthenticity. Your freedom mirrors their imprisonment. Rather than feeling angry, you might feel compassion. They're still trapped where you once were. Ultimately, Montaigne points us toward redefining success entirely, not as external achievements, accumulated status, or others' approval, but as internal freedom, authentic expression, and peace with uncertainty. This doesn't mean abandoning achievement. Many people find that they accomplish more once they stop being paralyzed by fear of failure. It means measuring success by different metrics. Am I being true to myself? Am I growing and learning? Am I treating others and myself with kindness? Am I present for my life? These questions lead to a different quality of success, one that can't be taken away by external circumstances, that deepens rather than fades with time, that enriches life rather than consuming it. When you're 80 years old, looking back on your life, what will matter? The impressive title you achieved while being miserable, or the moments you lived authentically, connected genuinely, and experienced fully? The approval you earned from strangers, or the self-respect you maintained by being true to your values? Montaigne lived these questions. He chose depth over breadth, honesty over performance, wisdom over certainty. And in doing so, he created a legacy that transcends his era, because authentic humanity is timeless. This philosophy isn't something to understand intellectually and file away. It's a practice, a way of being that develops through daily application. Start small. Notice when you're performing rather than being genuine. Observe when you're worrying about things outside your control. Recognize when you're sacrificing present experience for past regrets or future anxieties. Then gently practice releasing. You don't need to transform overnight. Small shifts in perspective accumulate into profound changes in experience. Each time you choose authenticity over approval, you strengthen that capacity. Each time you accept rather than resist, you cultivate peace. Each time you focus on the present, you reclaim your life from mental elsewhere. You might stumble. Old patterns have deep roots. But each time you notice yourself falling into desperate approval-seeking or anxious control, you have an opportunity, not to judge yourself, but to simply return to your practice of letting go. Montaigne reminds us that we're all works in progress. The goal isn't perfection, it's honest engagement with life as it actually is. And in that engagement, in that willingness to be real rather than right, flawed rather than fake, uncertain rather than artificially confident, you find something precious, yourself. The world will always offer endless reasons to perform, conform, and control. But you now have an alternative, the path of liberation through letting go, of power through acceptance, of success through authenticity. The choice, as always, is yours. What will you release today?